happening right now. This is News Talk Today on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
Hey, it's Mark Toohey sitting in today. Pleasure to talk with you and share some information. This is a story that caught our eye at News Talk Today. It is another example, I think, of laws that are just stupid in 2022. It's a landlord and tenancy law. And I will argue a little bit later that the laws were created in a system that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, we have this vision of landlords as big, bad, evil companies. You know, the old way that we used to rent homes was a big company would put up $100 million. They would build a huge building that they would own, and they would rent 100 units to 100 individual renters. And the big company with all that money and all that power had all the leverage. And so we needed to protect renters against evil landlords. And so we created landlord-tenant laws. But that's not how it is done very often anymore. These days, by and large, you'll have a big company put up $100 million, build a big building, and they will sell it piece by piece, 100 units to 100 condo owners. And then the company makes its $100 million back, and they move on to the next development, and it's left with a large condo that's owned by 100 different owners, many of whom rent to tenants. And they're not big, and they're not powerful, and they're not rich. And then you've got private properties that do the same thing. And yet our laws were written as if there was this big bad ogre that owned everything, and they were taking advantage of the poor little tenants. Well, some of the tenants aren't that poor, and some of the tenants aren't that nice. But our laws really haven't kept up. Plus, we have this landlord-tenant board that takes forever to make any decisions. You know, it used to be that they had 25 business days once they received an eviction request to hold a hearing and make a decision. Now they've just extended that to 8 months. And they're still not performing on time. One of the people that are caught up in this mess, and it's costing them dearly, my guest is a woman from Gatineau, wants to be from Ottawa, named Elsie Kalu. And she lived in Gatineau with her daughter. She wanted to move to Ottawa because she could access better healthcare services for her daughter in Ottawa. It would be more convenient. She rents a home in Gatineau. She decided that she could scrape together some money. She bought a home in Ottawa, hoping to move into it. But the home came with a tenant, and the tenant refuses to leave. And so now Elsie is stuck with paying rent on the property that she's in, where she has to leave soon because her lease is going to expire. And yet she's still paying mortgage on a property in Ottawa she can't move into, which was going to be her principal residence because the tenants that are already there won't leave. And it's cost her her job because she needs to maintain a positive credit check, and trying to pay 2 bills has caused her to, rack up some loans. Elsie Kalu, welcome to News Talk Today.
Thank you very much. Hello.
So what's your status now? You own a home in Ottawa. It has tenants. You're trying to get them to leave. They refuse to leave. What are you doing?
All right. Before I answer that, I'll just correct that I am in Ottawa at the moment.
Okay.
Where I'm renting is in Ottawa, and the home that I purchased is in Ottawa also. So I had bought there. It's closer to a school district that my daughter was supposed to start this September, and we had started the process of getting her therapy and everything because school has this support resources as well.
Right.
I actually just had a meeting with the principal just over a week ago, and they're like, we have all these resources we had prepared for Princess. When is she going to start? And the answer I gave them is the only answer I know, I don't know, because LTB has not even given me a date. It's almost 7 months and counting.
Wow.
That is over 6 months of the tenants not paying rent. That's over 6 months of me coming up with over $2,800, almost $3,000 per month to pay for the tenants to leave for free, to harass me in the process and not to allow me to access the property.
So not only is the tenant refusing to leave after you gave them notice, they're not paying in the meantime, so that's costing you money. You mentioned the LTB, that's the Landlord-Tenant Board. You've applied to them for an eviction notice. You've said it's taken 7 months so far. Do you have any hope? Is there a date yet set for a hearing?
Yeah, it's over 6 months. There is no date at all. And once I applied to them, I'm made to pay the tenant compensation. So I'm paying my non-paying tenants. They don't pay rent, but I have to pay them 1 month compensation for them to leave, which I have done. They even came back with a lawyer and asked me to make corrections and pay the money immediately, and they happily accepted it. But they haven't said any date if they're going to leave. That's the tenant. And the Landlord and Tenancy Board has not even given me a date for the hearing. So I had followed up with what they call request to shut-in time. That's just me appealing to them that I don't have this much money to keep paying for 2 houses, one of which I'm paying for strangers that I've never met, that I do need to get my day in court to at least present my case and get a hearing.
Absolutely.
And the response I got was that my case is not, there's no prejudice against me, and my case is not urgent enough. And I was wondering, what could make it urgent enough? Is it my corpse? Is it my daughter's corpse? Because at this point, it looks like that's the only options we're given. My daughter's mental health has totally deteriorated. If you had seen this 4-year-old last year, she had full luxurious hair. She has literally ripped it out with her own hands because she stopped getting therapy over 4 months ago. We cannot afford that. We have to use the money that this girl should have used to get therapy to pay for 2 adults to live for free.
And
so what is the prejudice they haven't seen that is not enough for them to grant me a hearing?
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable. And now you're living in rental accommodation. Are you going to be able to stay there until you sort this out, or are you going to have to move?
I don't know where I'm moving to. I should have moved since August when I couldn't pay rent and I was given an N4. So N4 is notice for eviction for non-payment of rent because I couldn't afford to pay my own rent. But I had to go back, and thankfully my landlord, considered the situation and she gave me a little bit of a leeway. But there is nowhere to move to. I have applied for housing and I've been told I need to get on the list for 2 years.
And yet you own a home.
Yeah, I'm paying for a home. I own my home that I'm paying for, but I cannot, I'm almost homeless. I have nowhere to live.
Elsie Kalu, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. I think it puts a face on a problem that most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. And my appeal to the LTD is, please do not keep doing this. I might just be a number, one of the people, but I'm sure there are many people up there. People could commit suicide. That is the only option we are left with because nobody is listening to us. I'm just begging the government, please do something. It's just cruel.
Elsie Kalu, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, one of the beauties of talk radio, especially this program, is that I know for a fact that government decision makers listen to it. And so if you are a politician in the provincial government or the federal government or the municipal government, if you are in any way, shape, or form, an elected official or a civil servant, what are you going to do about this? This woman's name, Elsie Kalu, she's in Ottawa. She's living in a rental home. She can't make the rent because she's purchased a home that she can't evict the people from because the government established landlord-tenant board is incompetent. And it's overwhelmed with the amount of work, and it takes far too long. It's months and months and months, if not years, in order to get, anything moved through the landlord tenancy board. So there's 2 problems here I see. One is our gut level appreciation for what happens, how people rent, where the rental market is, no longer rings true. Yeah, there are still some apartment buildings. There's even a few being built that will be built for rentals. But most rental accommodation in the last 25 years in Ontario and most provinces across the country has come from condos, private owners. So that doesn't ring true anymore. And the adjudication process is broken. Government, you need to fix this. You need to do it now. When we come back, what's happening in Ottawa with the protest inquiry?
This is News Talk 1010 Time Saver Traffic.
Well, the collision cleanup